In this video, I'm going to reveal 9 excellent wines that are selling for around $30 per bottle in the United States, give or take a few dollars on each side. There's 7 different countries and 8 different regions represented, and there's red wines and white wines, so there should be something for everyone. We're going to start out strong with an excellent wine from iconic Italian producer Marchesi Antinori. This is the 2021 Villa Antinori Chianti Classico Riserva. This is a wine that is produced from fruit that is sourced from highly coveted sites throughout the Chianti Classico region. For example, for this 2021 vintage, they obtained fruit from Gaiole, Greve, Castellino, and more. Note that this is not the Chianti Classico Riserva that Marchesi Antinori produces from plots that do not go into Tignanello. That's certainly an excellent wine as well, but that one will set you back closer to $50 per bottle. For the Villa Antinori, Marchesi Antinori tries to achieve a consistent house style year after year. So if this is a wine that you enjoy, you can definitely rely on it vintage after vintage. They mature this wine in a blend of tonneau and barrique. Tonneau is typically 4 times larger than barrique, and so you won't get quite as much new oak influence from those larger wooden vessels as you would from the smaller barriques. This is a very enjoyable wine that features flavors and aromas of black plum, cherry, leather, licorice, floral notes, and mixed herbs and spices. It's a wine that you can enjoy young, but it will definitely be a little bit better if you can hold off for at least a year or two. They produce around 42,000 cases of this wine, around 7,000 of which are imported in the United States. The next wine for $30 a bottle comes from a historic producer that traces its roots way back to the 1400s. That makes it one of the oldest estates in the Margaux appellation on Bordeaux's left bank. Chateau Siran has around 25 hectares of vines, and it's located in the southern portion of the Margaux appellation. One of its neighbors is Chateau Giscoux. Since 2015, the Angelus winemaker has been a consulting winemaker, and this has definitely paid dividends for them as the wines have never been better. In fact, the 2015 vintage is perhaps their best ever vintage, but the 2022 vintage of Chateau Siran, which I'm featuring in this video, is certainly not very far behind. Despite the fact that Siran is located on Bordeaux's left bank, this wine is actually dominant in Merlot, with around 53% Merlot, and there's 36% Cabernet Sauvignon and about 11% Petit Verdot. The 2022 Siran has impressive purity of fruit, and there's a mixed red and black fruit profile, and there's also flavors and aromas that include tobacco, lead pencil, and mixed spice. There's ample acidity and fine-grained tannins. This wine comes in at around 14% alcohol by volume. It's a wine that will definitely be better with a few years of additional bottle age, and you can enjoy it for 15 to 17 years thereafter. Next up is a wine that offers extremely compelling quality at this price point. It may cost you a few dollars more than $30 per bottle, but it's certainly well worth it. This is a mineral-driven wine with ample acidity and a long, complex finish. This wine features flavors and aromas of peaches, pear, citrus, and floral notes. This is the 2022 Catena Alta Chardonnay. The fruit for this wine comes from high-altitude sources in the Uco Valley. Significantly, a good portion of the fruit comes from the Waltaggiri area, which is a high-altitude area in the prestigious Tupungato district in northern Uco Valley. The high-altitude vineyard sources definitely play a big role in the quality of this wine. This is so because at high elevations, there's typically abundant sun exposure and warmth that will help the fruit to ripen, but there's also a wide diurnal range, as there's cooler nights that help to extend the growing season and ensure that the fruit has abundant acidity and freshness. This is a wine that matures for around 14 months or so in a mix of new and used oak. Next up is a wine that's produced by one of my very favorite Spanish producers. While I'm a particular fan of this producer's white wines, I enjoy the reds also, and there's a very high-quality red wine that they produce at around the $30 price point. This is the Remelluri Lindes de Remelluri Viñedos de Labastida. This wine is made from fruit that's carefully selected from a number of growers in the village of Labastida, who have vineyards that are planted at elevations ranging from 440 to around 710 meters above sea level. This wine is a Tempranillo-dominant blend that typically also includes some Garnacha and Graciano, and it generally comes in anywhere between 13.5 and 14% alcohol by volume. They ferment this wine in native yeast, and they mature it in a wide variety of different maturation vessels for a little more than 1 year. In terms of vintages, you can't really go wrong with any vintage for this particular wine, but you should be able to find the 2019 and perhaps some 2018 bottlings on store shelves now as well. Both of those vintages were quite good, although I have a slight preference for the 2018 vintage. This is a refined wine that you can enjoy immediately. It features flavors and aromas of black cherry, balsamic, mixed herbs, and spice. At the $30 price point, a number of wines that I feature on this channel are wines that I've tried at restaurants, sometimes during business dinners when I need to comply with a certain budgetary requirement. Last year, for example, I was at a restaurant in London and I was able to find the 2015 Volte Ornellaia, which is the third wine from Ornellaia. That wine was definitely in a terrific place and showed well with some additional years of bottle aging. A few weeks later, I was in New York and I ordered the new release of Volte Ornellaia. This particular restaurant in New York sold that wine by the glass and also had a reasonable price for the bottle. The new release certainly benefited from a healthy decant and paired extremely well with food. And while I know some people on this channel get mad at me for saying you can enjoy Volte Ornellaia young, I'm not going to apologize for it, as everyone in my group certainly enjoyed the wine and it opened up nicely after about 45 minutes or so in the decanter. I don't worry too much about vintage variation with Volte Ornellaia, as they generally do a fairly good job with this wine every year. The 2022 vintage is the current release. Interestingly, this wine doesn't have any Sangiovese in the blend, but it's a blend that consists of around 51% Cabernet Sauvignon, 44% Merlot, and 5% Petit Verdot. With some air, this wine is vibrant and expressive, with flavors and aromas that include blackcurrant, cherry, licorice, mocha, floral notes, and mixed spice. This is a well-made wine that's very balanced with ample acidity and smooth tannins. The finish is remarkably long for a wine at this price point. They import around 15,000 cases or so you can definitely track this one down without too much difficulty. The next top wine for $30 a bottle comes from a legendary producer. This is wine that's powerful, yet well-balanced with very smooth tannins. You can enjoy this wine young, but it will certainly give you some flexibility in the cellar and age for a number of years as well. Sometimes this producer's wines can be a little bit of a challenge to enjoy when they're young because they oftentimes use lots of new oak to mature the wines. This wine, however, was matured in only 16% new oak for only around 1 year or so. As a result, the oak influence is very subtle and there's impressive purity of fruit. This wine includes flavors and aromas of blackberry, blackcurrant, violets, and mixed spice. There's plush tannins and a velvety mouthfeel. This is the Penfolds Shiraz, bin 28. The fruit for this wine is sourced from a number of different areas in South Australia, including McLaren Vale, Barossa Valley, Clare Valley, and more. It's definitely a compelling value for around $30 per bottle. When I'm buying wines for my personal collection, in addition to looking for wines from strong vintages in certain regions, I also place great weight on the reputation and quality of the producer. And so this next wine that I'm buying in 2025 satisfies both of these criteria, namely the 2023 Weingut Donnhoff Niederhauser Klamm Cabinet Riesling, which sells for an incredibly reasonable $30 per bottle, yet received tremendous critical acclaim. 2023 was an exceptionally strong vintage generally in Germany, particularly for Riesling, and so this is definitely going to be something that I emphasize in 2025. And of course, Donnhoff is a legendary producer from the Nahe region in Germany, and certainly one that's a go-to for me personally. The vineyards that produce the fruit for this wine have southeast-facing exposure, so the fruit tends to get quite ripe, and as such, there's a little bit of a darker fruit profile for this wine. You can expect flavors and aromas of peach and lemon, with incredibly abundant acidity and a zesty, refreshing finish. Really a very enjoyable wine and an exceptional value for less than $30 per bottle. If you're interested in wine recommendations, wine collecting strategies, and learning more about wine, please do subscribe to my channel. I've been collecting wine for more than 15 years and also have a level 4 diploma from the WSET. So I have both formal certification as well as substantial practical knowledge from the School of Hard Knocks. In these videos, I try to include a broad selection of wines so that there's something for everyone. This next wine is perfect for those of you who have requested a wine that you can just buy, pop, and pour. You don't need to mature it, and you don't need to aerate it. You can just open it and enjoy it. This is the 2021 Canvasback Cabernet Sauvignon, which is from Red Mountain in Washington State. While this wine has Cabernet Sauvignon in the title, it's actually a blend that consists of 89% Cabernet Sauvignon, 9% Merlot, and 2% Malbec. This wine matures for around 20 months or so in 40% New French oak. This wine is part of the Duckhorn portfolio, so if you're a fan of the Duckhorn wines from California, you should enjoy this wine as well, as it's very much made in the same style. This wine features flavors and aromas of black cherry, plum, cedar, cocoa, cigar box, and mixed spice. It's one you should be able to enjoy over the next 10 years or so. Next up is a wine that offers exceptional quality at this price point. It's a single vineyard white wine, and it was one of the very first single vineyard white wines to be produced, not just in the Veneto, but in all of Italy. The name for this wine means little cavalry, and it's so named because of the extreme difficulty of working the basalt soils in this vineyard, as well as the tortured path required to reach the bottom of the vineyard. The 2022 Pieropan Soave Classico Calvarino has a classic profile. This wine is typically a blend that consists of around 70% Garganega and 30% Trebbiano. Flavors and aromas include lemon, apple, stone fruit, blossom, and wet stone. There's ample acidity and a long, complex finish. This wine is an absolutely magical match with seafood. I should also mention that Pieropan has a very enjoyable entry-level Soave Classico that sells for around $20 per bottle as well. So while that wine doesn't offer near the complexity of this wine, it's definitely not a bad option if you're looking for a more entry-level solution. And if you'd like to learn more about Italian white wines, including some of my very favorite Italian white wines at a variety of price points, be sure to check out this video that's linked above.